you. So, going up with the first person, I'm going to invite here on stage Ibukun Adedeji. Please, a round of applause. Ibukun is an accomplished product manager and technologist with extensive experience in developing innovative solutions across sectors such as lending, payments, and e-commerce. He's also a seasoned product leader. I did not hear you clap. Currently with Lipia, where he leads product efforts across the lending and payments and investments businesses. He enjoys building products from the ground up, driving innovation, and has earned a reputation as a 0 to 1 specialist. So, about his bio, if by any chance you want to connect with him after now, to do that. The next speaker I'm going to bring up on stage is Miss Chiehiura Basil. Chiehiura is a passionate designer who creates meaningful user experiences in digital products and to improve people's lives. I did not hear you clap. Is it easy to improve people's lives? Her 5-year creative design journey started with brand identity design, which evolved into graphic design and now thrives in product design. I'm sure all of us can relate. Another round of applause. So, product designer and Google Women Tech Makers for Port Harcourt. And lastly, I'm going to inviting on stage Mr. David Aniebo. Another round of applause. Mr. David is a software engineer interested in product quality, tooling, automation, and developer operations. He specializes in building scalable, high-performing, sustainable software solutions that consistently exceeds business and user expectations. Please, a round of applause for all our speakers. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to say? Okay.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you guys. My name is Ibukun Adedeji, and I'm a product leader, just like Mfonobong has introduced me. And I started my career with Sabi Africa as a platforms and integration product manager. Then I moved to Flutterwave as a product manager focused on the lending vertical. Then now at Lupia as a product lead, leading across the investment, the payment, and the lending businesses. So that's about me.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Chiehiura Basil. I love to be called Designer Chi. I am a brand and product designer. What I do as a brand and product designer, I help brands tell compelling stories by designing intuitive interfaces. I'm also the founder of DTA, Designer Chi Training Academy. We're the best place to learn design in Africa. It's really nice to meet you all.
Good day, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is David Aniebo, a software engineer. I started my career as a software engineer at Basil, a London-based agency, and later moved to Green Places, a sustainability platform whereby we help companies to automate their carbon footprint. And currently I'm at Metallic as a software quality engineer, whereby I get to write automated tests and check to make sure software meets the required specifications. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so how this works is we're going to ask you guys a couple of questions, and you're going to share knowledge because everyone here is hungry for knowledge, and we trust you to give us the best. So the mic is with you, Mr. David. So I'm going to begin with you. Okay, so how do you handle design changes or new feature requests that might impact system performance or scalability? Sorry, before you answer, and for context for everyone there in the audience, developer and designer Fireside chat is just that session dedicated towards, asking your favorite developers and designers, product managers, questions where they share knowledge on specific things that has been a reoccurring question or issue that we feel people would, want to get answers to. So that's what's going to happen here on this session today. So yeah, over to you, Mr. David.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Yeah, so before I proceed, I will start by saying that a good design is at the heart of a good performance, and managing changes is basically like managing opportunities to read together. Yeah, so before I proceed, when it comes to handling changes in design and also features, there is a concept in software engineering called change management. And change management basically refers to transferring the existing state of a software product to another improved state of the product. So basically, we have like a key steps of change management, like in order to achieve a successful change management in software development. And the first one is planning. And this is the first step whereby the designer and the developers get to collaborate to know, okay, what resources to be used for this change. And basically, this way, the designer comes in and gives more clarity, okay, why is this change is needed and what effects and what's like the concern it to get to the user experience. And this is also the step whereby the developer gets to raise any potential technical limitations and also raise any, let's say like technical concerns and all that. Let's see this in a scenario whereby, for example now, a designer comes up with a design and I'm a developer. I'm to implement this feature, but I can't just go directly into coding. And we get to plan, we get to involve the whole development team to know the process involved, to know the steps you have to take. And this is like kind of like the basic approach of it, like the planning phase. And the next phase here is the implementation phase, whereby the actual codes begin, whereby the developer writes code, tests, and deploy the codes. And in this stage now, the developers get to use tools like Jira to automate and also track the progress. And okay, let's see, okay, this feature, this is how it was done, and basically in change management as a whole. And the next step here is kind of like the evaluation and the testing phase, whereby we have like automated testers, the QA engineers now involved, whereby we test, okay, these features being implemented didn't provide any existing or didn't like break the existing feature in the application. We didn't like, there's no concerns, there's no bug, everything worked as expected. We meet the business and the project goals in general. And the next phase in the change management process in software development is the maintaining and the monitoring, whereby, okay, we are done with the planning phase, we are done with the implementation, we are done with the evaluation and testing of the whole features. This is whereby we get to monitor activities. Okay, after everything was done, we deployed, we test, and here we get to know, okay, what are the security measures, what are like the side effects, and whereby we use tools like Sentry or Datadog to monitor the whole log management and also to provide feedback to the stakeholders.
Thank you so much. So you have mentioned some stages, right?
Yeah.
How long does that typically take?
So basically, let's say like the planning phase, this is like the grooming session, whereby we have the developers and the design team together, basically the whole product team. So yeah, this doesn't take long because we have the design being implemented. And this doesn't take like, let's say it depends on the deadline we have. For example, we follow like an agile process, whereby we have like 2 weeks for sprint, whereby we get to develop, we get to plan, we get to like raise any technical concern. So yeah, and it depends on like the kind of like methodology the company follows, because we follow like a 2 weeks sprint planning process.
Okay, thank you. I'll get back to you again.
Thank you.
Okay, so to our amazing lady on the panel, I have a question for you. So how can people, developers and companies in general, ensure that AI solutions remain user-friendly and accessible to people who are not tech-savvy? You know, when we come to events like this, we usually have categories of persons who are just hearing of some things in tech for the first time, and even tech as a whole, you know. So how can we achieve that?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So firstly, if you want to design for AI systems, right, especially people who are not tech savvy, firstly, the interface needs to be as simple and as intuitive as possible, right? So how many of us use Gemini here? Everybody, exactly. So when you open Gemini for the first time, do you find it so complex and technical? Are they writing things like concatenarize and all those big jargons, right? So it's very simple. You will just see, hello, Chiehiura, what do you want to do today? Ask Gemini, right? You can see that the interface is very simple to understand. So when you're designing systems for AI, especially people who are non-tech savvy, you need to make it as simple as possible. It has to be intuitive. There should be less of technical jargons. And, if you're designing for people who are not tech savvy, if they make a mistake, for instance, there needs to be something that can correct them. Okay, so the interface has to be as forgiving as possible. So it's something I usually tell my DTA stars. When you're designing an interface and then maybe they forget their password or something, you need to put in all those steps. Like the user journey, you should imagine what if the user forgets their password? How would they recover their password? Will it be easy? Will it be very technical? Will it be very complex? So if you put all these things into perspective, you can design AI systems that would work for even non-tech people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. But just one thing, you said, in designs like that, we avoid tech jargons, but you made use of intuitive. I'd like to know what's intuitive.
Okay, so when I use the word intuitive, it needs to be sound, like it needs to be smart, right? So if I'm designing an interface, I should put into consideration the people who I'll be designing for. What if you're designing something for our mama in the village, right? You want to consider mama that, okay, what if mama cannot understand English? You want to localize that user experience, okay? You want to make sure that, okay, the languages could be, maybe what if she's from maybe some very local place in Akwa Ibom, for instance. The AI could also have the ability to convert English to something simple so that everybody can understand. So I hope that gives it more.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So I hope you guys are following in the audience. I'm going to be moving to our third panelists, and if you have any questions, we might take one question or not. But okay, so Mr. Ibukun, can you describe your approach to aligning developers and designers on a product vision, especially when they are conflicting viewpoints? I know product managers fight a lot. If you have people here that work in a team, I've never seen a developer that likes a product manager. It's always, Mr. D, you like them? Bad. We have just one person. So Mr. D is the 1%, but the 99% of the people I know are always fighting with product managers. So Ibukun is here to give us. Okay. We'll take your question after. Yes.
All right, thank you. That's a very interesting question. And the first thing to say here is it's a tale of the craft. If you've worked in product team long enough, that opposing viewpoint would always come up. But as a product manager now, over the course of my career, when things like that come up in a team from like the engineers or like the designer, one thing to do first is to communicate the product vision again and let like clarity comes like to like the designer or like the engineers. You'd come to see that like most times they are not factoring in a lot of things that they need to factor in, especially when we're dealing with an objective that deals with like our product vision. Then the second thing here is understanding the non-negotiable and the product principle for your product team. Now I'll give you an example. On my current team today, when there is a feature that has to do with our repayment or collection bit, as a lending business, we take it very, very, very seriously. From the design to the implementation to how we test, because that's the lifeline of our business, right? Then the third bit is what I would normally do when I have like different viewpoints from like different corners of the team, be from like the QA engineer or like my associate product manager or like the designer or the engineer. And what I do is
noise cancellation
learning their viewpoint via the discovery matrix. And the discovery matrix is simple. One is to understand, will our user be able to use this? We're solving usability risk. Two is is it viable for our business? Can our internal stakeholders like support what we're trying to do? That's business viability risk. The third one is this platform that we're building. Will our users be able to use? Okay, I mentioned users. Okay, can our business support this? The third one will be around technological feasibility. Can we even build this? Then outside of the technological feasibility, is trying to understanding and like answering all of these questions. So if you run like these opposing views through like this discovery matrix, you see that like some part of like the views are lacking, and we can't necessarily like go with a particular viewpoint. At the end of the day, we need to like reach a consensus to drive our initiative forward. And the third bit here, which I'm going to illustrate with like this example, was a time when we're trying to internationalize our bills payment service. So then we're serving customers mainly in Nigeria, but at the point we wanted to like start serving customers in Kenya and South Africa. And then my designer was like, look, I've designed this particular product flow for Kenyans and the guys in South Africa, for our merchants there. Let's redesign a new localized experience for them. And my lead engineer was like, no, we can't do that. We already have like a flow already. And if there's one thing you know about purchasing bills, the flows are almost always the same. And we're like, let's reuse this component. But as the product manager there, I was pressed for time. The most important thing to do there was to say, guys, let's go with like the reusable component part. And I wasn't right at the end of the day. We had to deal with currency issues. We had to deal with other issues down the line. But it is just for us to like know that like there are different like product principles to put in place, understanding your non-negotiables as a product team, and also solving for all of these risks that I've mentioned.
Thank you. So I have a follow-up question to that. Sometimes you get to have people in the team, could be designers, could be developers, not aligning with the vision. And that somewhat falls back on you as a product manager, because there is a product in line that needs to maybe go into the market or needs to be improved on. So how do you handle that situation?
So typically for guys that don't fall in line, as a product manager and now as a product leader, I have a mantra. And the mantra is the business. If there is no business, there is no technology product to build to support or get revenue. So my job at that point is to try to make them see why it's important to go with a particular approach. But at the end of the day, the business comes first.
Okay, so indirectly, you're telling us if you mess up, you don't go ask. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. David, I have one last question for you before we take questions from your audience. So, could you share some specific tips on how to maintain efficient communication with designers during rapid iteration cycles? I think developers have an issue with designers in general. They're always fighting on the timeline.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, so basically, where I work, in our agile methodology, we get to implement a process like grooming session, whereby we have like the team members get to review. We plan and also like prioritize tasks in the backlog. And backlog basically we have like the list of tasks. We have like tickets that need to be completed before the sprint or after the sprint basically. So yeah, so having the designer and developer in the grooming section leads to like improve the communication process in general. Because for example now, having the designer, the developer, and the stakeholders in basically, we get to like have everyone perspective and each other's individual perspective are being considered basically. So the grooming session helps to facilitate seamless communication between the development team and the design team. Yeah, that's first of all, and also using like a communication channel like Slack for communication messaging. We use Figma for design needs and raising concerns, and also using Jira or Notion to raise bug tickets and if like anything comes up during the planning phase. Another thing there is kind of having like a alignment in the vocabulary. Because, for example, now, as a developer, we have a component called pops up or model or dialogue. Some people, we have like 3 names for that. But it's basically like what pops up are like what you see in application. So like having like a clear alignment in these terms just to avoid misunderstanding during the development process helps a lot, because some people calls it pops up, some calls it dialogue. And so having like when they are designing, like the design terminology and like the technical consent, just like having like a basic common ground for everyone to understand and like to know the process to follow. Yeah. So yeah, the last one there is stand up, whereby we get to raise any design blocker if we have, whereby this facilitates communication as well. Because as a developer, when I join a stand up, I get to raise any design blocker, and the designer will also get to like hear feedback from the development team for example, what he or she is working on in general. And also another aspect that helps to like facilitate and also like bring seamless communication between the development and the design team is, let's say we have like a demo session after like 2 weeks, whereby we get to see, okay, what is the developer working on, like how far, and what can be done and what can be changed. Yeah. So this like kind of the thing like helps to facilitate communication among like designers and development team.
Okay, thank you. Since you've mentioned a lot of things that needs to be done and some tools that can be used, but we still have that issue. Looking at the fact that designers are like the bottleneck of a product. Well, not entirely, but most companies are very particular about user interface design. That's where you have designers at the top of the funnel, because at that point, developers will be depending on you to ship out designs. But like it's been a constant struggle in that space where designers are not delivering. I think it's a general, is it just me?
No,
I think it's a general thing about designers, even graphic designers. Like people always complain.
Yeah, so like for example now, let's say like a tool like Figma, whereby we have like prototype, whereby the developer gets to see like the simulation of the user flow, the experience before the actual implementation process. So those are like things that helps. Let's say like it bridges the gap between the communication like developers and designers have. So something like prototyping Figma helps a lot as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay. So last question for you, Chiehiura. How do you involve end users in the design and testing of AI systems to make sure they meet real human needs? I mean, it's AI we are talking about, so how do you make it more human?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Okay, so if you want to involve end users in your AI implementation, okay, so there's something I usually say. Firstly, you are not your user. I remember one time, we were having a session at DTA and, we had this product we were working on and, some of our DTA stars, they were like, I love yellow, ma. That is why I use yellow. I'm like, you love yellow, but this design doesn't need yellow. So I had to like re-educate her to tell her that firstly, you are not your user. You may think you like something, but what if what you think is the best is not what will be the best for your end user? So one of the ways you can understand your end users is by doing usability testing, right? You need to understand the people you're designing for. And so it's just like two people in a relationship. Okay, let me now enter relationship. Relationship always enter everywhere. So if me and, someone were in a relationship, the only way I can understand him is if I ask him questions. What do you like to eat? He would say, okay, he loves white soup. And the way you're smiling at me, do you like white soup? So he could say he loves white soup. So I would say, okay, I love fried rice and all that. So now we understand each other. When I understand him, understand his perspective, then I can be a better, maybe girlfriend or wife or whatever, right? So now when it comes to the AI systems as well, you need to understand the people you're designing for. And how can you understand them? Conducting user interviews, conducting usability testing, asking them the questions that are pertinent to I'm not speaking big grammar, pertinent.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, asking them questions that is in line with whatever you're designing for at the end of the day. You need to ask them these questions, right? If you're designing for people who are in the younger generation, like Gen Zs and the millennials, we love things that look exciting. So you need to understand us so you can design for us. Another thing is conducting A and B testing. So you can have two different design ideas. Okay, this is flow 1, this is flow 2. We can, conduct usability testing, understanding, okay, this flow from this screen, it takes the person to this screen, takes the person to this other screen, and then you get feedback. Because at the end of the day, if you don't get the feedback you need, how can you design for these people? So to answer the question summarily, if you want to design for your end users, you need to understand them well. And the best way to do that is by conducting user testing, usability testings, user interviews, and voila. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you. So one last question for Ibukun, and we take one question from Mr. D. So what strategies do you use to uncover fundamental needs of users in emerging markets, especially when standard data may be unavailable or unreliable?
Thank you for the question, and that's a very good one. You see, for emerging markets, we're plagued with different constraints and limitations. One is energy,
noise cancellation high,
internet access, connectivity. So when you're designing for emerging market and you're trying to uncover the fundamental needs, one for me would be to leverage internal data. And one prime example for me was when I designed a product, I think about 3 years ago then, I was competing with the likes of MoneyPoint, even Flutterwave at the point. And the product was around collections. At the point we implemented USSD and we had pay with transfer and all. And USSD was a very fancy one for customers. But when I look at my dashboard and I'm seeing 5 times or even up to 6 times what the TPV, which is the total processing volume for transfers, is what I'm seeing for USSD. And USSD is very fancy. I'm like, this isn't working, right? So one is to leverage internal data to uncover fundamental needs. The second will be to consider secondary sources. So today, if you're fortunate enough to work in industries where there are market leaders that run surveys and publish this report for the public, I think one of those good sources are things like that. And for example, you have MoneyPoint publishing reports, and Piggyverse just released another one, I think 2 weeks ago, where you can see the spending habits, how people earn, what they save, what they buy, their the demographics. These are data for you to leverage. Second, then I think another one would be getting local ambassadors, or what I'll call direct sales agents now. This is very unpopular, but it gives you the best result. And I'll go to the example. So essentially, what you're trying to do here is recruiting people. I don't know, you get their demographics, maybe very young people or people in a particular locality. Share with them the vision of your product, how it works, and then they are the ambassador. They get to evangelize to other people, trying to tell them what your product is solving, right? And I saw OPE did this around 2017, 2018, when they were trying to scale their QR product. So these are the ways to uncover fundamental needs of users in the market, because you can't say you want to design a collection product and the very first thing you're doing as a designer is you're designing for an iPhone screen. It's not going to work. Yeah. So
thank you, Ibukun. Our time is almost up, so I'm going to take the question from Mr. D.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just have one question for the people on the Fireside chat, and but you can answer that. So we can clearly see the discussion about developer designer, and Fon mentioned that there has been war between developers and designers. And I guess technically you guys are not part of that war, because you have evolved into working in teams. Teams understand how important we are to each other. Most of the guys in this audience, they are designers and developers fighting each other. I would like you to talk about how developers and designers can learn not to fight each other and collaborate instead. So whoever wants to talk should talk about. I'm talking about developers and designers. I know you guys have been talking about a lot about teams, product team, and engineering team. Those guys are they are on another level. Majority of these guys seated here, they don't understand. They are still fighting each other. So please, help us to end the war between developers and designers.
Thank you, Mr. D. So I'm going to give our speakers, panelists, 30 seconds each to share their views.
Yeah, so basically, from my own perspective, to end the war between designer and developers, so I think the first thing here is to have like a seamless communication to actually know the goals, like the project goals and the business needs before the actual implementation process. Because, for example, now the designer gets to design. I mean, let's say the designer doesn't have like development, more of like the tech aspects when it comes to like the development process. So it's the work of the developer to align with the designer to know, okay, this is what is needed and this is what's meant to be done. And okay, we now discuss with the stakeholders, okay, we now know, okay, this is the goal of the project. Because, I'm a developer. We are always fighting each other, basically. Yeah, so having like a proper alignment matters a lot, like the proper vocabulary in terms of, let's say, I use like the pop-up, like the model, because I'm developing a model and another team is also developing the same model, but they call that same model dialogue. But having like a proper vocabulary to align with the business needs matters a lot too. And also having like a single source of truth when it comes to communication, whereby we get to, for example, in Figma, we can comment. In Jira, we can drop feedback. So let's say we have like a feedback loop. We can always go through and also like assess the whole design process and the whole development flow. Yeah.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Next.
5 seconds.
Okay, 5 seconds. Okay, so the question is, how do developers and designers stop the war? So I would borrow some of the things he has said. Communication is very important. Now, when it comes to communication, you should learn how to talk. You cannot just say, I have done my design, or there's nothing this developer can do about it. You can still try to, massage their ego. Okay, so what do you think about this? Okay, I think we should change X, Y, Z. Right? So communication is very, very important. And learning how to talk. There are people that will just say, I say my mind, ho-ha. And this ho-ha is ho-ha. If I put this design, if you say you not develop it, we'll take it to the product manager. Then product manager will start, separating us. So communication is very important and learning how to talk. Another thing is early feedback, right? Getting early feedback. So he said something about Figma, like the comments on the Figma board, right? So that's really important because if you drop the comments early, okay, the developers can drop their feedback and everyone goes home happy at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I like what my fellow panelists, what they've said, but just to add to it, we need to evolve from a workflow where when the product manager is done, the designer picks up to design, then developer or the engineer starts. We need to evolve to a place where the product manager, the designer, and the engineers are all doing product discovery together. Because when we get to a place where we're all trying to understand the problem together, there is the lower barrier of miscommunication that I've seen. So we all need to get to a place where our workflow is not more sequential. It's like we're all at the discovery stage and we're all at the delivery stage. That way, we wouldn't have any of this fight.
And that ends our fireside session. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chiehiura. Thank you, Ibukun. So it's great sharing the stage with you, and see you. Bye-bye.